This is a video for 2 TVWO. I'm going to explain exercise T3 of chapter 11. In exercise T3 it says, solve the following equations. T3a is a squared plus 4a is 0. This is a binomial, so you have to use the method, what's the highest common factor, and then single brackets. The highest common factor, single brackets, and then is 0. The highest common factor in this case, there are no numbers what they have in common. They don't have any numbers in common. So I'm going to look at the letters. They have a letter A in common. So write down A. A times is A squared, so that's A. A times is 4A, so that's 4. Always check this in your head. A times A is A squared. A times 4 is 4A. It's correct. Now, this needs to be 0 or that part needs to be 0. A is 0 or A plus 4 is 0. This stays the same. A is 0. And over here, I'm going to do the mini balance method. Minus 4 on this side, minus 4 on that side. A is minus 4. This is how you have to write it down. So first you copy the exercise, do the factorizing, and then you do the solving. Exercise B is 3b minus 9b squared is 0. Again, it's already reduced to 0. I'm going to look at the equation. This formula on this side is a two-term, so it's a binomial. And I have to use the method, what's the highest common factor? What's the highest common factor? Single brackets. If I look at the numbers, they have the number 3 and the number minus 9. So they have 3 in common. So write it down. And they have the letter B in common. 3b times needs to be 3b. So that's times 1. Then 3b times needs to be minus 9b squared. So minus 3b. Because 3 times minus 3 is minus 9, and b times b is b squared. Okay, check it in your head. Always check it. 3b times minus 1 is 3b. That's correct. 3b times minus 3b is minus 9b squared. That's also correct. Then you do the solving part. So this part is 0 or this part is 0. Divided by 3 on both sides, so you get b is 0. You're going to do minus 1 on this side, minus 1 on that side. The minus in front of the 3 belongs to that 3b, okay? So minus 1 here, minus 1 here. And then I'm going to do the opposite of times. There's a times here. I'm going to do the opposite, so that's divided by minus 3 on this side, divided by minus 3 on this side. A negative number divided by a negative number will be positive. And 1 divided by 3 is 1 divided by 3. I can write it down like this. 1 divided by 3 is 1/3. Okay, so the answers are B is 0 and B is 1/3. Exercise C is c squared minus 2c equals 0. Again, a binomial. What's the highest common factor? Single brackets is 0. They don't have a number in common, but they do have the letter c in common. C times has to be c squared, so that's c. C times needs to be minus 2c, so that's minus 2. Check it. C times c is c squared. C times minus 2 is minus 2c. Now you come to the solving part. I always write down a little v, that means or. C is 0 or c minus 2 is 0. C is 0 is just c is 0. And over here, plus 2 on this side, plus 2 on that side. Because I'm doing the opposite. And that's c is 2. Exercise D. 2d brackets d minus 5 bracket is 0. So this is single brackets and it's already reduced to 0. This is a special situation because what a lot of students do is they remove the brackets here. But you don't have to do that because when the brackets are already there, it's actually really nice because then the factorizing is already done and it's also reduced to 0. So now you can stop. You don't have to do the factorizing part. You can go to the solving part immediately. So 2d is 0 and d minus 5 is 0. Divided by 2 on this side, divided by 2 on that side. D is 0. Plus 5 on this side, plus 5 on that side. D is 5. So two solutions, D is 0 and D is 5. Exercise E is double brackets, first 1 minus 3e and then 4e minus 17. Now the double brackets are already here, so the factorizing is already done and it's also reduced to 0, which is really, really nice because then I don't have to do the factorizing part anymore. I can go to solving immediately. So that is 1 minus 3e equals 0 or 4e minus 17 equals 0. Then I have a mini balance method here and a mini balance method here. First I'm going to do this one. Minus 1 on both sides. Then divided by minus 3 on both sides. Minus 1 divided by minus 3 is negative, divided by negative will be positive, and 1 divided by 3 is 1/3. So this mini balance method is done. Let's go to the other side. So 4e minus 17 equals 0. Plus 17 on both sides. 4e is 17. Divided by 4 on both sides. When it's a difficult one, you just write down 17 divided by 4. Write it down as a fraction. That means divided by. 17 divided by 4. And then you can simplify it. I know that 16 divided by 4 is 4. So there are 4 whole numbers in it. And then the leftover is 1/4. It's also gave you right now 4.25. So two solutions here. Exercise F is z minus 11 in brackets squared equals 0. I write down a z with a little stripe here. That's because otherwise it looks like a 2. So that's why I do that. So it's a letter, z minus 11. Now, this is a special situation because there are brackets and there's a squared. And on the other side is and then 0, or it can also be another number. Now, you don't have to do factorizing. You don't have to do the solving part how you used to do that. This is a special method. What we're going to do is we're going to do the big square root on this side and a square root on that side. Once I do the square root, it's the opposite of squared. So once I do the square root on this side, the squared is gone, which is nice. So z minus 11 is the leftover. Once I do the square root there, what is left over is z minus 11. Then on the other side, I also do the square root, so the square root 0. When you come to the moment you do square root, you also do the minus 1. So, or z minus 11 is minus square root 0. You always have to write that down. In this case, it doesn't make any sense because square root 0 is 0. And this one is minus 0 and it doesn't exist. So there's only one solution in this case. But sometimes you have another number here, for example, 16 or 25 or 36. And then you have to do the or and then minus the square root, okay? Now let's solve this. Minus 0, that doesn't exist, so it's just 0. Now this and this one are the same, so you only have to solve one of them. Plus 11 on both sides, so z is 11. Now, we only have one solution here. Why? Because this is what it looks like. It's a parabola. This is a parabola. When is it the same as this straight line? And that straight line is a horizontal line over here. And it only intersects this parabola. So when is the parabola the same as the straight line? When is the parabola the same as the straight line? Here. Here's where it intersects. And it's only one point. Only one solution. So it only intersects at one point, which is at the point 11. Exercise G is in brackets g plus a half squared is 0. This is actually kind of the same exercise as exercise F. So I'm going to do the special method here. So once you have the brackets with the squared and then is and then a number here, you always do the special method with the square root. So I'm going to do square root on this side. So the leftover is g plus a half and the square root on the other side. Make sure that you always do this. When you come to the moment you do a square root, you also do the minus square root. Minus square root 0. Again, with 0, it doesn't make any sense. But I just want you to remember that you always have to do the minus square root as well. Minus 0 doesn't exist, so it's just 0. Now this is the same as that, so I'm only going to work out one of them. Minus a half on this side, minus a half on this side. So g is minus a half. Again, only one solution. Exercise H is 42h squared minus 28h equals 0. This is a binomial, so what's the highest common factor? Single brackets. First I'm gonna look at the numbers. The numbers 42 and 28. What do they have? Minus 28. What do they have in common? I believe I can divide them both by 2. So if I divide this one by 2, it's 21, and if I divide this one by 2, it's 14. But I believe there's a higher common factor. Maybe it's 7. If I divide this by 7, it's 6. If I divide this by 7, it's 4. Maybe there's an even higher number. Maybe it's 14. If I divide this one by 14, it's 2. And if I divide this one by 14, is that 3? 3 times 14 is indeed 42. So I guess the highest common factor is 14. And then the letter, what they have in common is h. So I'm going to do 14h times needs to be 42h squared. I already calculated it. It was 3 and then also h. And then 14h times needs to be minus 28h, which is minus 2. Always check it in your head. This times this is indeed 42h squared, and this times this is indeed minus 28h. Now, the solving part. 14h is 0 or 3h minus 2 is 0. H is 0 or 3h is plus 2, so 2. So this just stays 0, and this is divided by 3 on this side, divided by 3 on this side. So h is 2 divided by 3. A lot of students do this on their calculator, so they type in 2 divided by 3 and they get 0.6666667. In this case, it's a repeating 6, so I want you to write down the fraction here, okay? So just write down 2 divided by 3, 2 divided by 3, okay? Good. Hey, this was exercise T3 of the Test Yourself of chapter 11 explained. I hope it was helpful. Thanks for watching.